I'm Ever Clinton with the University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, or Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and we would like to interview you for our field school project. First thing, I would like to know if you are aware of everything that's written within the consent form, and that you understand that there are no risks and there are no benefits to whatever you say, and everything that you say is not confidential. Are you aware?
Yes.
Great. So, okay. So, can you just, first, can you just state who you are and spell your name and then what you do on a daily basis?
My name is Angela Pruitt, Angela Pruitt, and I am a resident of Washington Park Partners. And right now, it's summer, and so I do a lot of gardening in my yard and in the community.
Okay, so when did you start liking, when did you become fond of gardening?
I've always liked gardening, even when I was a little girl. Never had the opportunity. Didn't know that you could really grow vegetables in the city. It's just been a couple of years, the last 4 years that I have come to understand urban gardening, and now I love it.
That's interesting. So you're not from Milwaukee?
No, I'm from Chicago.
I am too. That's interesting. So, in Chicago, were there any urban gardens when you were younger?
If there was, I never saw them.
So, did you just watch TV to get a sense of what gardening was, or was it something that you just started when you moved to Milwaukee?
My grandmother lived in Robbins, Illinois, which was outside of Chicago, Illinois, and she always had a garden.
That sounds tasty. So, can you describe how you became interested or participated in you said the Washington Park garden?
A couple of years ago, I met Aaron from Safe and Sound through the Marquette cleanup in our community, and through Safe and Sound became aware of urban gardening, and so I looked up the community organization in our neighborhood, which is Washington Park Partners, and found Washington Park Partners, and decided to see if that was something that they were doing. Then I met Pua through Aaron, and didn't know Pua had she even was affiliated with the Urban Gardens. But then I met her once I got involved with Washington Park Partners again, and that's when Pua asked me to oversee the garden in our community, which I didn't know was there. And that was about 3 years ago, and so ever since then I've been active in urban gardening in our community.
That's very interesting. You mentioned before how you were from Chicago, and that your grandma started the gardening and everything. So will you describe your childhood as far as how you viewed her gardening?
To me, I love the outdoors. Always have. And because I love the Lord, I think everything that He created naturally is beautiful. And that means the ground and the things that grow out of the ground, the sky and the sun, the rain. I love all of it. And so when I was a little girl, to see how all of that works to grow something that we can eat for nourishment was amazing to me. But it also taught me something else. It taught me the value of life, because if you understand life a little better, it's like life begins somewhere and it grows. And it needs certain things in order to grow. It needs the sun and the rain. It needs to be planted somewhere in good soil. And so that's kind of how I look at gardening, as it gives you not only some nourishment for your body, it gives you nourishment for your soul, your mind, your body, all of it. So it just, I just love gardening for that reason. And just to see it get bigger and grow into something from a seed is always amazing to me.
Okay, so how would gardening from what you observed your grandmother doing, how would gardening gardening in Chicago be different from gardening in Milwaukee?
Actually, the garden that I'm working in Milwaukee is the same as the garden that I worked with my grandmother. So she always had a really big plot, and she always grew tomatoes, potatoes, corn, onions, and everything that she grows. I kind of grow here because I'm familiar with it. We just started an orchard, which is right across the street from my house. That's something new to me, and so I'm expanding it a little bit this year. And so, like I said, things should always continue to grow and get better, right? And all that comes through knowledge of what you're doing and moving on to better knowledge, right? Keeping all of it together.
That's really nice. You mentioned the orchard. Are there any residents from the neighborhood who volunteer at the orchard with you?
Not yet, just my grandchildren. They know about it. It's 2 years old. This is the third year, and the only thing that they know is that Miss Angie doesn't want you over there until things get to a point where we can better things get better, because we were finding out that some of the kids didn't know that there were fruit trees because they were so young. The kids were young and the trees were young too, and so they knocked down a couple of the trees, like 4 or 5 of them. And so in order to get them to better know that those are fruit trees, you have to tell them. So you had to watch the orchard. Tell the neighbors, this is an orchard. We're trying to grow fruit for the community. If we knock them down before they can start to grow, then we won't have anything. And so everybody that I tell that to, they go, oh, I didn't know. Okay, so now this year is much better. They're not in there so much. They know to let the trees grow. And so in some kind of way they are taking care of it, just not hands-on yet. But they're making sure that they don't do something negative to it. So that's a good thing.
So, would you say that, well, do you have any of the neighborhood children wanting to help you with the orchard?
Sure, we were. I had an event, an orchard event planned for this summer, but then they started breaking up the street, and I filed for a grant that didn't come through, and so I wasn't able to do it. So the only thing that I'm doing right now is just bringing in my grandkids, and I'm holding the responsibility to bring in one friend with you from the community, because we're all from here, and then work in the garden now that they're out of school. So that should be up and running real soon.
Okay, you mentioned the orchard and how you had a plan for it. May you describe that for us?
The thing that I wanted to do, a couple of trees are leaning. Get some rope to stabilize the tree so that it starts to grow upward. To water the trees when necessary. To keep the area clean, which they do now. A couple of years ago they didn't, but they're doing it on their own now. And I also wanted to plant some flowers this year. And then to have an event where the kids could just come and kind of claim the trees, see the trees growing, so that it's not just me telling them, but they see how they grow and how bigger they get, and take responsibility and ownership of the orchard as much as possible, so that it becomes a real big thing in the neighborhood. This is like a fairway. When you come to that corner, if you see our orchard and our brand new street, you'll say, these people like their community, and we just want you to respect it as much as we respect it ourselves. So it's just a gateway for me.
Okay. And then you mentioned a lot about the community here. What was your first memory living in this house with this neighborhood?
Well, the first memory was, we have this wonderful house. The other memory was it was not a good neighborhood. It was a real hard neighborhood to move into. It was kind of, it had more liquor stores and bars than necessary. The kids in the neighborhood had a lot of gangs going on, and new people they weren't very accepting to. Either you're going to come alongside us or you just going to get out. Well, I was determined I wasn't going to get out, so we had a lot of back and forth until they got to know who I was and had to get okay with it. So it got better.
That's good. So are you actual friends, or are you friends with any of the neighbors on your block?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Ooh. May you describe those relationships that you have with them? I think that would be really interesting.
Well, they're kind of like me now, right? At first you don't know how to take people until you get to know them. So it takes about a year or two to get to know one another. It's not immediately, because for some reason, in this area, you have to you have to get people to trust you, and in that, uh, you you have to let them know that you care, and then they'll realize, hey, we both care. We both want the same things, and now, so if there's something going on, we look out for each other. Um, if somebody needs to know something, that's like some of the resources that I have that I get information from. I take it to my neighbors. We tried to last year start a job program for our teens in the neighborhood. This year we weren't able to do that. That's something that we're looking to do a little bit better. It went it went good. It was only 3 teens. We were looking to do more this year and have more um, power behind us to back us up, but it didn't work out. And so some of our neighbors are talking about how can we, um, as a block, take ownership for our community to better have summer jobs for our kids, um, hold our renters, because there's a lot of homeowners on this block, hold our landlords accountable for keeping their property in good standing. Not that it's, you don't just collect rent. You have to make sure that the roof doesn't leak. You have to make sure that the porch isn't falling apart, that kind of thing. And if that person that rents that place feels like, it's just me and this landlord, then you need to know, no, we back you up as much as, necessary. I mean, we can get you pointed in the right direction to help hold that landlord accountable, because it's just not one person on this block. We're all here, and for this community to be as beautiful as it is and stay as beautiful, we all have to, get involved in taking care of it. So that's kind of how the relationships that we have now, right now, and our kids know each other. The only thing, we have a lot of Hmongs on our street, and we have a language barrier, but they pretty much want the same thing. We just can't communicate it right now, so we're trying to figure out how do we get communication going between the two communities, so that we can be one.
Okay. You mentioned your acquaintance with Pruitt, and so how has her native tongue is Hmong? Has that been a great influence as far as the garden on 31st and Brown?
Yeah, because the Hmong's families, I mean, they're natural gardeners. The African American families, like me, had no idea you can grow vegetables in the city, so that's not something that they were thinking about. And so it's easier to get gardeners in the Hmong community than it is for to get gardeners in the black community, because uh, they would rather garden in their backyard than in a community lot, because, again, the trust factor. Are the kids gonna come tear it up? Is somebody gonna pull up my vegetables, and then when I go back for them, they're not gonna be there anymore? So we're getting over that just a little bit more. Last year we thought we had overcome it, but something happened until it just kind of diminished all the way this summer. So this summer we only have Hmong families in the garden.
Okay, can you speak a lot on the trust factor that you have to retrieve from the neighbors in the neighborhood and the children as well? May you go into the process of how you would gain their trust?
You just have to keep a line of communication open, and let them know. I mean, you have to become active. About 6 years ago, I didn't see. I mean, I had been here 15 years. And it got better, and then it got worse, and then it got better, and some things never changed. And so I came in my house and I shut my door and said, I don't care anymore. And for 5 years, that's all I did. Back to work and home, to work and home. I didn't speak to anybody. Nobody spoke to me, and I didn't get involved in anything that was going on. Then about 5 years ago, I decided I was tired of that I didn't want to live in a community where I didn't know anybody. Nobody spoke to each other. We didn't do anything for the community that we lived in. You know how it is in the spring when the snow melts, and then there's a whole lot of garbage up under there. And then, it just kind of, one year looked at to me like, if nobody ever picks up the garbage, that's all we'll ever have. But everybody has a part to do. And so if I'm coming and going and that's it, I'm not doing my part. And how do I do my part again? So it started with the Marquette cleanup. And that's how I met Aaron. And then ever since then, I've been, we went door to door that year. We had a movie night. She asked me, "What do you want to see?" And I have been looking at that lot for years over there where the orchard is now. And I thought, I just want a drive-in movie for my kids. My kids don't know how good a drive-in movie was. I'm sure these other kids don't either. So how do I get this community to know me again? And how do I get to know the community again? And I said, it would be wonderful to have a drive-in movie night there. And I said that to Aaron, and we jumped on it, and it happened, and that's how I got to know my community again.
That sounds really warming. So you talked about the drive-in theater. Was that big when you were younger in Chicago?
Oh, yeah. Every week we went to the drive-in.
Can you describe the type of movies you would go see?
Oh, anything that you would see at the theater, you'd see it at the drive-in too as well. Yeah, so I mean, it was just they had a playground where if you got, because you wanted to get the back spot so you get to drive in early, right? Then you got the car full of kids, and so then there was a park they could go play in the park until the dusk. And that's kind of how the movie night went. They had games and food and things until it was time. It got dark, and then we set up the movie night. And it was awesome. And so then all the kids would come in with the blankets and adjust the radio receptors, and everybody get ready for the movie. And it was just family time. So that was something, and it wasn't just you. It was cars everywhere, and you knew if you come every week, you got to know more people, and your community was there, other people's communities there. Our kids was meeting people in the park and stuff, and so it was great, and it was just a way to, stay connected. Line of communication is always good.
Okay, you, when you brought up the connection in the community, it kind of brought me back to how you were a resource to your community or to the Washington Park neighborhood. How did you become, well, I know you went through PUA and you got involved with Marquette, but was there any other thing that helped push that resource factor for the community?
When we started the movie night, I got in, Aaron introduced me to a group of Metcalf Park residents. Metcalf Park at that time was the worst neighborhood in the city of Milwaukee. And there was a group of residents who would meet at the Next Door Foundation to try to figure out how to make things better. There had been a recent shooting, and the shooting was actually down the street from me. It was over in my area more than it was in Metcalf Park, but it involved Metcalf Park residents. And so I met this group, and that's the group that I got acquainted with, they bought through Safe and Sound and the Alderman's office. I met a lot of people in the city, and met some new residents. We went to the police meetings to see the crime and what was going on. We met new officers, got acquainted with the police officers, and I went to the black captain meetings to see how we could really bring our neighborhoods together. And so that's kind of how it started, that just using the resources through that one event to point me in a direction where I really wanted to go, which is to better our community. But the hardest thing, that's the easy part. The hard part is to get the residents and to come out and get involved. That's an ongoing effort. So.
Well, may you describe that ongoing effort?
Well, it goes back to the trust factor. I mean, even though, I can go and talk to a resident and say, my name is Angela, and I live down on 32nd and Garfield, and, I've got this information I want to share with you. Or we're having this event, or our community is having a garden, and we want you to come out and be a part of it. And, the residents will say, oh, I know you, but that's not something I want to do. And so you talk it up, and then you say, well, maybe not this year, but next year. Let me keep going. Back if I get some more information, I'll bring it to you. So I'm constantly coming back, keeping that line of communication open. And they get warmer, with you, but it's just you, And our alderman, he came in and did a walk. That was awesome. and they got to meet the alderman. And we had an issue with the house down there that a landlord wouldn't didn't keep up. He took care of that. The landlord lost the house. And there's but it how do you get them to you keep going back, and but then the problem is they don't always use the resources, but they'll come back to me and say, can you do this or do you know that? Well, yeah, then I can point you in the right direction, but I can't get them to go and use the resources. It would be okay for them if I would just bring it to them instead of them going to get it themselves, because they don't trust it. They trust you, but they don't trust the resource itself. So it's hard.
Okay, you talked about like the resources. Like, what type of resources do you bring to the neighborhood?
Well, like we'll say one is the garden. We had a children's park that had become, let's say, the drug dealer's office. No kids could go there, and it smelled of urine. And so I talked to the neighbors, and everybody said the same thing. They just need to tear it down. We got the city to tear it down, which they were glad about that, which made the drug dealer move on. There was no benches there. You couldn't sit there. But they rebuilt it. So it's back now, and the kids are using it. But one resident said, it's going to be the same problem it was before. So what was the difference? And some of the resources, like, let's use the garden. Well, no, the kids are tearing it up. Well, let's work with the police. Oh, no, they don't care anything about you. Well, what housing issues? Well, they always say they don't have the money. So what's the point? So I just don't know what to tell them. I mean, yeah, one year they may not have the money, but if you go back the next year earlier, then, you just can't give up. We get a lot of giving up.
Okay, so how has hope played a factor in the neighborhood from the time you've just moved in until now?
Hope. I don't know. Is there hope? I don't think there is hope. I think we have Habitat homeowners. I'm a Habitat homeowner. We have a lot of Habitat homeowners in our block. And Habitat's, one of their sayings is more homeowners, the more people would take stock in the community. I don't see that in our homeowners. It's still a division where the resources that they know about, it's okay for them, but it's not for everybody. And it's just Habitat. But it's so much more than just Habitat, and they don't know it.
Okay. May you describe the type of divisions that you see amongst the neighborhood?
They kind of like me, like I was. Just come and go, You might say hello, but then again, you may not that day, So I don't know. Some days, I guess some days are good days and some days are bad, not as good. But I tell you one thing about the street. I know a lot of families have been here for years. But talking to one another hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's always seems like there's a wedge between the community for some reason, and I can't put my finger on it. I don't know what it is other than the trust factor and the hopelessness.
May you describe one of those good days?
Oh, a good day is well, if there's an event going on, they'll come out and support that. But if it's not, then there's not a whole lot going on other than, it's not like we knock on each other's doors all the time or go sit on each other's porch, things like that. We don't do that. We say hello from afar and leave it at that. So, as a neighbor, but as a community leader, I'll go knock on your door and sit on your porch, but I want to be your neighbor. I want to just be your community leader, a community resident leader. I don't want to. I just want to be your neighbor. That's what this is all about. And I don't know why we can't get to that point. It's hard.
Okay. Will you describe what you feel a neighborhood means to you, or what you feel a neighborhood should be?
Well, a neighborhood should be, where people know each other, communicate, in a decent manner, where, there's not a whole lot of friction. They're all on the same page. We're about the community. Um, just accepting of one another and encouraging each other to do better in life, Knowing, so and so's yard doesn't look like it used to. I wonder what's going on over there, and then, being able to go over there and say, "You okay?" That kind of thing. But we don't have any of that. So.
Okay, well, back on neighborhoods, what will be something that you would like to change?
Just to get the residents involved with each other. To get to know each other. Trust each other.
Okay. And so, previously you mentioned crime with the Metcalf and crime over there with the garden, and then you mentioned your children. Can you describe the amount of effort you put in to protect them from the crime that may be lurking in the neighborhood?
I let them ride their bikes. I don't do anything to keep. You mean as far as keeping them on the porch or in the yard?
Just to keep them busy and keep their attention to whatever activity that they're involved in, instead of it's like, oh, that looks shady over there. Let's go see what that's about. Like, how do you keep their attention towards positive activities?
Oh. Well, we do a lot of things. We have family gatherings, and they get involved in the orchard and in the park a lot. And then, I have a vacational Bible school that I do. Well, it's for the community too as well. But other than that, kids will be kids. They'll just do what they do. Besides riding their bikes and playing ball with each other, going down to the park, the school, play basketball and things like that. That's about as far as I allow them to go. Is from here to the garden, which is across the street from the school, and then one block up. And so you have to. Kids, they know the violence in the neighborhood. It's sad to say because I didn't when I was a little girl, but they know how dangerous it is, and so it's hard because you could sit in your own house and get shot from outside. They could get shot riding their bikes, but do you stop them from riding their bikes? You want them to be a child, right? You want them to enjoy their childhood, even though there is violence out there. And so you have to make them aware of it, which they really are. But you can't chain them up. That's not a childhood. So basically, you find things to keep them busy, but also activities that are good for them. Bike riding, basketball, jump rope, 4 corners in front of the house, that kind of thing. But we don't live thinking about violence all the time. You can't do that. Be aware of it, but don't let it rule your life.
Well, you hinted on how when you were a child you didn't know or you wasn't aware of the violence. Well, why do you think that's a sad thing?
Sad for them that they do.
Oh.
Yeah, not sad for me. It was great for me. And I remember how, there's hope in that, because if you grow up in this world like the kids have to do nowadays, and now they know it's violence, how are they to have hope? You hear on the news that she was sitting in her living room with her parents, and she got shot and killed, 9 years old, playing at the park, shot and killed. I didn't deal with that when I was a child. I didn't have that fear or that worry, but these kids do. And so, for as much hope as I had in my life, they only have half. They have a whole lot less hope in their lives. There's this comic that I took out of the newspaper, and the teacher said, "Raise your hand and tell me what you want to be when you grow up." And because they always did when I was a little girl, right? What do you want to be when you grow up? And one kid raised his hand, a little black kid, and said, "I want to be alive." And so that's the truth that our kids, they live. So what hope does he see? I could have hoped to be a nurse or doctor or anything. All he wanted to do was be alive. And so what kind of hope is past that? That the only thing you can think about is how to stay alive. What do you mean a career? School, college, how does that play into all my hope goes into just being alive, staying alive. So sad.
How do you keep the hope for your grandchildren and children alive?
You have to still give them, a good education is important. It doesn't matter where you are, be the best that you can be. There is always hope. You have to know that there is always hope. That, accidents happen every day, no matter what it is, accident, and you have to take them out of the neighborhood so that they can see better things. I can do that for my kids and my grandkids, but can everybody do that for their kids? Maybe not. Maybe there are some kids who never get out of their neighborhood. Where's their hope? So yeah, I can give hope to mines, but I'm just not concerned with just mines. I'm concerned with my whole community. And so that's that's the factor that I think about. I mean, it wouldn't make any difference to me. I mean, it just wouldn't make me happy just to be, like I said, I could come and go and raise mines. That's not what makes me happy, though. I don't want to be locked up in my world.
Well, you mentioned your summer church group. Do many children from your neighborhood go to the summer church Bible study?
Yeah, last year we did it in Metcalf Park, and I had 25 kids in my class, and then we had an older group, and that group had 15. So it was just me and two. It was two teachers in my class and two in the 15, and so each day it gets bigger, and that's the good thing because the kids say, "We had a good time. You should come." And so it is. It's a very good thing to do. This year I'm looking to do it in the garden, in the pocket park, and then get the kids. And like I said, I always tell the kids when we end out each day, you're responsible to bring back one person with you because that's how we grow. So it's a good thing. It's always positive. Yeah.
Okay. How often do you go to volunteer at the garden, or do your grandkids go? And then how often do you see Hmong workers helping with the garden too?
Hmong workers, I don't see them like they come out at dawn. We don't do dawn, which we should, but in the summertime you want to sleep a little bit, So we usually get there about 10, and the kids they'll go anytime I ask them to come, and they're real anxious. Grandma, we going to the garden tomorrow. I mean, they love putting their hands to the dirt and learning things. And everything that I do with my kids, it always has to be a lesson in it. As crazy as it makes me, but it has to be a lesson in it. And so they go 2-3 times a week, weekends. Mm-hmm.
It reminds me when my mom used to wake me up early in the morning with sweets. We'll be asleep, and then she'll stick a piece of cake in our mouth and then wake us up and then say, "Okay, now go clean the yard."
Because you're up now, right?
Yeah. I read in a paper, or I saw it on Fox 6 News about one of the gardens you were involved in. Can you describe that?
One of the gardens that I was involved in?
Yeah, I don't recall the name, but it's where you had these, I think you started to erect gardens in your backyard and everything. Can you describe that?
Oh, Victory.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, Victory Gardens. Yeah, oh, that was so long ago. Yeah, Washington Park Partners had a housing fair, um, and I went to the housing fair, and Victory Gardens was there, and they were offering vegetable beds for $25. And so I wanted to grow in my yard, and it just looked like a big field to me. And so when I saw that these beds, would close it off a little bit, and I could get a little focused, I thought that was great. And so I purchased a bed, and they when they installed it, they do the boards and the dirt and everything, and put it in a great place for you. And so it came at the time when I had been talking to a lot of our low income families, and they were saying that in the summertime the kids are at home, and they eat up everything because usually they're at school, they got the lunch, and I just can't keep up with it, grocery wise. And so I thought, man, if we could grow vegetables and fruit, because when I was a little girl, um, we stayed out all day playing. And when we got hungry, we went from yard to yard eating what they were growing, and the neighbors didn't mind. And so I thought, well, if we could get enough vegetables and fruits growing in our neighborhood, then maybe the kids can just pick and go as they outside playing like I used to. And so that was kind of one of the things that it's always coming out of my memories, right? But I had such a good childhood. That's what I want for these kids, right? And so that's kind of how the way it started. So when I did my first bed, I told everybody, when I grow these vegetables, you're welcome to come in and get them. And then the community garden, Washington Park Partners would dedicate one plot to the community where they would purchase the vegetables, and we would grow them, and then the neighbors could come in and pick it if they wanted them. And now we had the vegetables good, and now we're working on the fruits. So I'm feeling real good about that.
Well, what type of vegetables do you grow in?
Tomatoes, cucumbers, squash. What else did we have? Things that kids would like. And who doesn't love a tomato every now and then, right? And cucumbers, you could always pick it up like a pickle and eat it. And the squash, you take it home to mom and say, look at this squash I got, it's really good. So that just simple stuff because everything I think for kids, and because they're the ones that's really active. Mama or daddy's always at work, right? So what can we do for the children? And so just one plot of bunch of tomatoes, a bunch of cucumbers, and the squash, and that's basically all that we would have.
Well, how often do you see, children just picking up the vegetables and eating it,
Last year it's a gradual thing. Now the first year, the adults are the ones that I told us they would go down there and find them. Last year we had quite a few kids. They were new to the neighborhood, so they were a little bit more inquiring about the garden and not so cautious as the other kids in there. Because Miss Nancy don't go in there until it's grown. Otherwise, if you pick it too early, it doesn't benefit you, right? So these kids didn't know, and they were picking too early. And then you don't want to, discourage a child from coming in there. So you try to explain it. The good thing was the mother drove up as I was telling them, don't come in here until it's time for them, when things are grown, and they could better understand it. And the plot that Washington Park Partner has for the kids is not the Hmong families, and you can't go into there. So it gets a little hard sometimes. But I would say we had about 5 or 6 family of children that would come and pick from the garden on a regular basis. Once we got them established to understand, let the vegetables grow first. So it was good.
You spoke about how it may get hard sometimes. May you describe that?
Yeah, it gets hard sometimes because you have those kids. Somebody might, we live in a very transient community where people come and go. They move in for the summer. The next summer you don't see them. They're gone. And so you have to kind of establish things on a regular basis, right? With other kids as it goes. So I just try to stay on top of the kids in the neighborhood. I work better with the kids, and so I work more with them than I do the adults. But it's hard to help them. You know, they don't know about growing. They don't know when it looks like it's. You know, if it looks like we got a tomato and it's red and it's this big, but it's not. It's supposed to be bigger. They don't know not to pick it, and so we're working with Roz. She came up with a slogan that says, you know, don't pick me, don't pluck me before my time. And so she's supposed to be making signs this year to put into the gardens where it says exactly that. Wait until I'm grown, you know, full grown before you take me home, kind of thing. So that's what we're working on. It's an ongoing job. Like I said, it's transient community, and so every year you have to try to figure out how to keep the kids out of the garden until it's time for, you know, them. So we, at the end of the year, we try to throw a harvest event so that the kids will know the garden, and if you're here next year, this is how things go. So it's through events and things like that.
Okay. You spoke about how some teens were involved with the gardening project. Can you describe that entire project?
Well, through Cream City Farms, David Johnson, Washington Park Partners partnered up with him to. We hired 3 teens last year. Named them the Beat Team. They were awesome. Well, it was actually 4 teens, the Beat Team, and they would come in and they would weed the gardens, water the gardens, clean up the neighborhood, and there were 5 gardens that they maintained through the summer, and then on Fridays they would work the vegetable stand at the farmers market on Lisbon. And it was really a good program. The kids grew so much. You know how they come in, teens, and they're, you know, kind of laxy daisy, and you know. But I was so encouraged with them by the end of the school year. They turned to be such hard workers. You know, once they got their foot in there, that it was just awesome. And I really hate that we weren't able to do it this year again.
May you describe the types of tasks they had to do to keep up the gardens?
Well, they pulled the weeds and they watered. Kept it clean because cut the grass, rake, and last year we found the patio was a basic garage floor, and it had overgrowth, moss, and the kids scraped all of that up, cleaned it all up, and got the pocket park ready, and kept the maintaining what's cut down the trees and the bushes and things like that. So they had a lot to do. This year wouldn't have been as much of the cleaning as it would be maintaining. So we have to, like I said, cut the grass, pull the weeds out of the community garden, because we don't have to do anything for the families unless they ask the kids, but they always do their own. And also keep the front of the garden clean, the curbs and things like that. So it's really good. And then we didn't have water rights, and so they'd have to cart water down the street and use it. So
that's tough.
Yeah.
You mentioned the 5 gardens. Where are those 5 gardens?
One is Martin Drive, Bethune on 35th and Galena. Our 32nd Street, the Orchard, and then the other one is right here on 37th and Brown. Mr. Jones has a garden right next to that pool was involved in with, also right next to his family, his house. Last year he actually brought the land. They were selling the lots next to your house for $1. He actually brought the lot last year, but he's got raised beds, and he's got ground vegetables as well. So those were the 5 parks and then in between time the kids would clean up the streets. Lisbon, 32nd, from 32nd to 37th. Last year we had a church camp come in to help UMCS upgrade their property. The kids worked all week with them in painting and cutting wood to measure and replace in some of their houses, and they redid that whole fence in front of UMCS as well.
I was trying to visualize UMCS in my head.
United Methodist Children's Services, right on Lisbon and 30 across the street from Washington Park.
Okay, I visualize it now. So you talked about the teens and how they were involved. Like, how did you go about getting those teens to help you?
Well, I supervised them all summer, so every day that they worked, I was there with them.
So did you have to go and ask their parents, or was there an application process?
Application. Yeah, we did an application. There first I flyered the neighborhood to let them know that we have these job positions available, and then the sad part is that we didn't have enough jobs. But once we did, we picked the kids that we were going to keep. We went back to let the other kids know why we weren't able to, which they were really disappointed. And they were like, "Oh dang, I knew that was gonna happen." It's hard to go back and tell them it's not gonna happen. Then you diminish the whole project. Then they said maybe next year we'll try to get it done better next year. So then when they came this year and said, "Miss Angela, we're gonna do that job this summer again," and you say no, and then you diminish hope a little bit more, right? So it's an ongoing battle, but I refuse to close my door and give up again. I refuse to do that.
Well, can you describe the battle process of trying to get grant monies for the children to work in the gardens?
Yeah, last year, Washington Park Partners backed that program through Cream City Farms. This year, the biggest thing that I find with the grants is it's like a competition. You have to, you have to come up with the greatest proposal to get the grant for your community. And I feel like that all of the communities could work so well together if it wasn't such a big competition. But it's always a decision. Where's the money gonna go? And who's gonna, make it look the best? So this year I didn't do a lot of grant seeking. Because I just wasn't in the competition. I guess I gave up hope a little bit too. Sad to say, but I did. It was hard last year getting backing. And this year, I didn't really, the money that I expected didn't come through, and I didn't look any further, which I should have. So I'm determined during this summer that I don't have the kids, I'm going to actually look to see how many grants are out there that may work for us.
That's very helpful. You mentioned how some of the teens, they lost a little bit of hope because they weren't able to get the job. Can you describe how, I know it made them feel a certain type of way, can you describe how they would act, or if they came back to ask and volunteer more? Or
if they wanted to volunteer more?
Yes, after this little bitty shred of hope was...
No, they didn't want to volunteer more. We had a few volunteers last year besides the B team, in hopes of, let me show you what I got, and then maybe next year I'll get the position. And then when the position didn't come available, they decided that they would do something else. That and the hopelessness is that, see, you fooled me again. You told me. And then we go back to that trust factor. I trusted you that things were going to get better this year, and it didn't. So it's a disappointment.
Okay. Well, how do you communicate that the feeling of hopelessness to the people who give out the grants?
I don't. I don't think I ever have. I just try to present a project that's beneficial as best as I can. I don't think I've ever put the hope in it.
Why not?
Um, didn't think it mattered.
Well, I'm here to tell you that it does matter.
It does.
It matters to me 100%, and I'm pretty sure it matters to all of the teens out there that just need that guide and that push. Well, that's all I have for you, but do you have anything that you want to ask, Allie?
No, I mean, hope in putting the project together on paper for someone. I don't put the hope in there for them. I just try to present the project. Mm-hmm. But for the kids, how do I give them hope? The only thing I can say is you got to keep trying. We just got to keep trying.
You mentioned that you work with gardens a lot. How do you guys keep up with the garden in the winter?
We at the end of the year we do a harvest event where we clean all of the dead plants, and then just clear it just for that. Once the snow flies, it's a done deal.
Okay. And then you also mentioned that you and a couple neighbors went through the habitat process in order to get your home. Can you explain the process a little bit?
Gosh, my process was 21 years ago. I think it's different now. You apply for it. Well, first you go in and find out what habitat is. Then you put in your application. Then they do a home visit. And they, through the application, they found out, they do your credit check, your background check, and then your income check, and then they make a choice, and if they choose you, they'll let you know that you've been chosen. Now, when I first got chosen, there wasn't any houses available, but you can, if you're chosen, you can still. Back then, your down payment on your house was 500 sweat hours. That was your down payment. And so even though you didn't have a house yet, you could still work towards your 500 hours volunteering at the other Habitat houses that they were building. And so I started working in other houses, volunteering in other houses. And then I think a month into the program, they said, Angela, we got a house that came through. We want you to come and see it. And so I came over here to see his house. It was a burnt up, broke down mess. And that's exactly what I thought about it when I looked at it. I said, that's a burnt mess. But I came in, and that was the outside. I came in, and the Habitat had already started tearing down the walls. And so it was down to the bare boards. And I thought, oh, wow, this is going to be awesome. And it was huge. And I said, oh, 6 kids, this would be wonderful. And so they said, think about it a little bit. I said, I don't have to think about it. I love it. And so then they said, okay, next week you start working in this house, which will be yours. And could you imagine someone telling you that you can get a house? Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I think I was 32 years old, and I thought, I'm going to get a house at 32 years old. And me and my 6 kids are going to have our own house. My biggest thing was I was always paying rent somewhere. And I was never going to own anything. I was just paying it to somebody else. And now I'm going to own it one day. That's just awesome. And I could, I wouldn't have to worry about, moving out again or again. It's just mine, and that's what I'm working towards. So that was the biggest thrill.
That's awesome. How did you imagine your house to be like back then when it was all teared down, and then how did you come up to what it is now?
Actually what they did was they walked me through, and they said, this is what we want to do, and this is how we want to do it, and what do you think, and do you have any suggestions? But because they know exactly what they're doing, is you could just kind of visualize it and see at the end what it's going to be like. And I didn't have anything to add to it other than let's just do it.
So you didn't have trouble imagining how it would be?
No. Yeah. Section off this room, and you'll have 2 rooms. And you see, that was there when I got here. still there.
Mm-hmm.
And I leave it there for a reason.
What's that for?
That is, I don't know who did that. I don't know what kid thought that was funny. But the broke down, burnt mess. This is the original door.
Okay.
And then the people who lived here before, I'm sure that was their kids. And so that's just a reminder for me
Mm-hmm.
how far I've come from that and that broke down mess. And so I leave it there just for sentimental reasons.
That's awesome.
Mhm. Yeah.
I have a question. You hinted on like how you felt that Habitat was different now than it was then. Can you describe how different you think it is now?
Well, I don't think your down payment is 500 sweat hours anymore. I think you actually have a down payment. And I right after I got this house, they stopped doing rehabs, and they were only building houses, which were, for smaller families. They're back to doing rehabs, which I'm really glad to hear that, because bigger families have an opportunity, like me, who had 6 kids, to become homeowners as well. So, that's the only difference that I knew that changed. Other than that, they're still, basically the same.
How did your children react to having their own home and owning it?
Oh, they love it. I mean, I told the girls I'm getting old now. I might sell the house, and the kids was like, "Don't sell a house. We love this house." But the good thing is the kids helped build the house. So, they got a lot of memories here. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's all they talked about when they first moved in. I did that and I did that. And we built this house, and so it was just awesome.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my best friends. She lives in a Habitat house, and she would explain how her mom and dad would be working on the house, and she was just so excited. So I could only imagine how excited your children are.
Yeah. And that was it was a first for them to put their hands to building anything, putting a nail in, or painting a floor or something, and they were so cute back then. They're all grown now.
Do you ever open this door or?
Oh, sure. You just had it open yesterday, man. Yeah, I usually keep it open. Close it in the winter time because this gets kind of cold. But since we have the air on sometimes, what the day is like, if I open it or close it.
I have one more question, but how has your faith played a role in how you treat people in the community and how you treat the children in the community?
It plays a big role in it because, my motto is, treat others the way you want to be treated, regardless of how they treat you, because I wouldn't want anyone to treat me, in a bad way. But my hope lies in God. Only by the hand of God can we get through what we're doing and what we're going through right now. And so even when you're communicating to the people in a community, and sometimes because they don't trust you and they don't want you to communicate with them, you have to go in the love of the Lord, and you have to let them know, I'm just here trying to do better. I'm not trying to be better than you. I'm just trying to do better. And I want better for you, and I want better for me. So the only way we can do that is to, do it together. And because if I didn't go in the love of the Lord, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't care. So my faith is what drives me. And that's it. That's where my hope lies. And I try to get the kids to understand too, this is temporary anyway. Our hope has to be in the obedience of the Lord. We have to take care of the land. We have to take care of everything that God gives us. Because if we don't, then, we're being disrespectful.
Is that a picture of your grandchildren?
Yeah. Now, this is Trey. Trey's a comedian. I love him to death. And that's his mom, Amanda, my daughter. Trey and Makai, they got awards for working in the garden last year.
Really?
They got to meet the mayor. Makai was so afraid. But yeah, they got to meet the mayor. They ended up in the Washington Park newsletter. But they worked so hard for Grandma last year, and that's Michaela and Ari. Those are my two granddaughters. They worked very hard too. But Trey and Makai were with me every day.
So how did they react knowing that they were in the newspaper?
Oh, well, Trey, he's a 3-point. So he took it to school right away to let everybody know he got his award, and he shook the mayor's hand, and he wasn't scared at all. He was ready to tell a joke. Makai, he was real nervous, but I told him, I said, this is a good thing for your portfolio. He's going to middle school this year, but they were very proud of themselves. I was very proud of them too. Yeah.
I'd be proud of them too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all I have for you, but do you have any questions or anything?
I just kind of wonder what you guys are going to get out of this. What is it all for?
Well, we're doing research with one of our professors to understand what homes mean to people, and all stages of homes. So the renting process, the foreclosing process, eviction, and then owning a home and what that home means and all of that stuff, and then to the history of the people who help Milwaukee residents own homes. So yeah, this will play a huge role in that.
Oh, okay.
I have one more question.
Okay.
So you mentioned that how when you first saw your house before it was Habitat, that it was a burnt mess. Do you see any type of abandoned homes around in this area in your neighborhood?
Oh, all the time. This house right across the street next to the orchard. It's been abandoned for a couple of years now. And in reality, it was actually a very good house. And I was hoping someone would take it. And we had a couple look at it. They never came back. Then we had another group that came over to look at it. And nobody ever came back. But that house is wasting away to the point where they might have to tear it down. But in reality, in the beginning, it was a very good asset. And to tear it down now would be, just a loss. And so I think that I told the mayor we formed a group through Washington Park Partners who met with the mayor about his foreclosed homes and how they sell them. And I told him, I said, you could sell a whole lot more of these homes if you made it more friendly, because what's happening is the low income families who can still afford them, the application is so intimidating until they'll get to a certain point and they'll just give up. Because we're talking about the hope factor again, and you got to keep people hopeful, otherwise you'll lose them. And so the whole situation can get anyone to a point where I don't want to deal with this no more. It's just too much. So if he could make it a little bit more friendlier, more accepting of people, he could fill these houses rather than have to continue to tear them down. These are beautiful houses, but they're sitting idle too long, and it's not necessary for them to be idle that long. When you can really have a family and they're just like Habitat, give the people a chance. Don't make it so hard. Work with them, which he said he's doing, which he is doing, but there could be a little more or less stress in it for people, especially people who have never owned homes in their lives. Never expected to own a home because, where I come from, who I am. But, give me an opportunity, work with me. We could have a lot of these homes occupied.
You mentioned friendly, like making the homes friendlier.
The application friendlier.
Oh.
The whole process friendlier. Because like I said, you'll lose a lot of the people who can really afford them, because it's not an easy process. And I've talked to several people. I've gone to home openings, and it's really a good opportunity. And then they go through the application and they talk to certain people, and I don't know the credit check. Are you a felon? People were a felon 35 years ago. They still can't get a home. They never was a felon after that. They made a mistake. So, yeah, we're talking about new beginnings. We're talking about people taking stock in the neighborhoods. The only way to do that is that you work with them. You be accepting of who they are, not who they were. So, that and friendly like that.
Okay. Do you know about the application process and what it entails?
I did. I went through it. It was intimidating to me. Habitat's application. Somebody sits with you if necessary, explains it to you. It's not you. You know, fear will make you walk away. And some questions on the applications, you know, if you don't know somebody, you'll walk away. And so I try to work with people who don't know somebody and really ask. They have great agents. They all of the home buyers program have great agents. But you don't have enough to work with everybody who's applying for it. So you know we could get some people in there to volunteer to help the people with the process. Let's do something, you know, to get these houses occupied. It's just a disaster to see them go empty like this for so long, and then the weather and everything just tear it down. It's just not worth it. It's a better way to do it.
Okay, I think I have one last question. You, I can tell, are a big leader, a pillar of the community. How often do you come across people who are leaders in their community like you?
Often.
Yeah.
We talk about this all the time. I mean, I know quite a few people. There's some like Miss Terry across the street, but she'll rather deal with it through her church. You know, when they have their events and things like that. But for me, it's a collective. I live for the bigger picture, and like I said, with the competition of the grants and things, this is about a city. It's not about a neighborhood. This is a citywide thing. And if you can get the neighbor, I mean, if you could, you know, cut down that division, that wedge between each community, and bring us together, you know, as a citywide thing, I think I know it will work a whole lot better. And so what I do is I go out, you know, to the events, and I meet the other resident leaders and let me know what you're doing. I'm going. I have that is a screen that is right there that I bought and for our movie nights. And July 7th, Harambe asked me if they could use my screen and my projector to hold the movie night. Of course, and I'll bring some of my people to your event. And when I have an event, if there's something you can use, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, and a lot of us do benefit through the grants to have stuff that we can, you know, order and buy and keep. But it's okay to loan it out to somebody else. We can't keep thinking that, you know, well, you ain't gonna steal my idea. Who matters? What matters? If your idea was good and it would help my community, doesn't that, you know, I just think that's the way we need to be functioning. And so that's how, that's my next step, is to get more involved, see what they're doing, help me, help you, help, you know, us as a city. So that's just me. And somebody said I'm picking the wrong fight, but that's a fight I cannot put down. I'm just not going to put it down. So
I'm happy you won't put it down.
no, I'm not going to put that down.
Okay. Hold you up to that. Well, that's all of the questions that I have for you. I just want to thank you for letting us interview you and just being yourself in the interview process and just, I don't know, just describing all parts of everything that you do. It's truly like an entire body, and when everything works together.
Yeah, that's me, the big picture.
I like that big picture.
Yeah. Me too.
Okay, so is there anything else that you would like to say, or
think we covered it.
Erica? No. Okay. Well, thank you, Angela.
You're welcome. I appreciate you guys too.
Well, thank you so much for
Appreciate you.
taking time.
I think that's all. So how's your day going so far?
Oh, it didn't start. It started off my my water heater went out, so I got to get somebody in here. And my daughter went to I just had to get her out on a quick flight to Minnesota. My granddaughter to her dad's, and we got down there and she didn't have her ID with her. I had to come all the way back here on 48th and North Avenue and then shoot her back down there again. Oh my God. Yeah. Just, I don't know. She's 16, but she's just, I don't need my ID, Grandma. I said, yeah, you do. No, I don't. Oh, gosh. Don't you know you do?
Yeah. She needs to sign
Oh,
that.
yeah. I know. I just realized. I'm like, she didn't sign it. Okay. This is the other part. It's just a description of the project. And yeah. And then, yeah, it's just a huge description of the project, like an in-depth one.
I have to sign it, or it's just
Um,
it says my name goes here and or what?
It's my name goes there. Here.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah. Print, signature, address, and city, state, and zip. I like this thing. I was looking at it too. I'm just like,
Old house.
It'd be cool if they dated it.
Hmm?
It'd be cool if they dated it, so you knew from when it was.
Oh, that you mean.
Yeah.
And they actually wrote ha ha ha.
What does it say? I can't read the whole thing.
It says, ha ha. I don't know what that says.
True.
Darius
Yeah, maybe.
was here. And this is Trey, or tree or something.
It doesn't make any sense.
I'm telling you this. I can rap. Ha ha ha. With a K.
This was a duplex.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a duplex. And I think Darius lived downstairs, and this door, and then where the couch that you were sitting on, there was another door that led up, and there was a wall between the two.
Okay.
And then they just tore it down, and there was a patio up top, and they had a patio door upstairs, but they tore all that down.
That's
So I could easily go back into a duplex if I ever wanted it to, but I can't get rid of my kids, so.
My mom can't.